It's like laminate to the back.
Presentation is free to the public
An announcement for people who might be online, that you may want to.
through the internet or by calling in by phone. The public is also able to observe the meeting on the township's YouTube channel. Continue to check the township website calendar for any updates related to these public meetings. Agendas for these public meetings will also be available on the township's website. Please be reminded that this meeting is being video and audio recorded and will be posted to the township's YouTube channel for viewing. The meeting will now proceed with the chairman calling the meeting to order and identifying all other members present in the meeting room and those joining the meeting via Zoom. The chairman will then confirm those members joining by Zoom can be heard.
Okay, good evening, everyone. First, I just want to make sure you're in the right room. This is not the towing ordinance. Towing ordinance is in the police department. So I will call the February 10th meeting of the East St. Peter Township Planning Commission to order. To my far left, Planning Commission members John Thompson, Jansen Herr, Sarah Ryder, and almost said Andrew, Ryan Martin. Jacob Bowen is the Director of Planning and a Zoning Officer, and Lee Ovitz is our Administrative Assistant this evening, and I'm Randy Patterson, the Chair of the Planning Commission. So we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have no one on Zoom that we know. You have the minutes of the January 13th meeting of the Planning Commission before you, and that's the this process. Are there any changes or edits to those minutes? If none, I take a motion to approve it. Motion from Jansen, is there a second? Second from Ryan. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, so moved. I'm going to take a chair's prerogative and change our agenda for new business a little bit. That's okay with most of you. We have two items that are relatively short to address, and then rather longer land development plan. So I would like to do the E.G. Stoltzfus application first, then we'll do the tree house, then we'll do Lancaster Archery, and then we'll do the zoning ordinance last. You're all welcome to stay for all of that. But in case you didn't want to, you would be able to leave. So our first item we have no old business. Our first item of new business is land development number 2025-26. The land development plan, no, I didn't, sorry. 2025-30. An application for rezoning for E.G. Stoltzfus Land LLC at Thornton Road. You can come to the podium, introduce yourself, give us a brief overview of the application.
Good evening, my name is Peter Wertz. I'm an attorney with East Boston, Newark. Here with Ryan Bull on behalf of petitioner E.G. Stoltzfus Land LLC. So the property that's the subject of the rezoning petition comprises two adjoining tracts of land located west of Mount Sydney Road. The 0.9 acre vacant parcel and a 5.5 acre parcel where Stoltzfus has until recently maintained offices for its custom home and remodeling division. Both of these parcels are currently within the township AG zoning district, but are directly adjoined by lands in the VR Village Residential Zoning District. As you can see there on the zoning map excerpt that was submitted along with petition, you'll see the property designated by the blue arrow in the top right corner, showing the ag zoning district in green, budding contiguous with the VR district in brown, the two parcels shown there by the blue arrow, both the larger 5.5 acre parcel and the smaller 0.9 acre vacant parcel are the parcels that are the subject of this petition. So E.G. Stoltzfus is currently finalizing the relocation of operations. That's already been completed, and as a result, desiring to redevelop this property for residential purposes and in connection therewith to rezone again from the ag to the VR zoning district. At this point in time, we are anticipating creating 10 lots that would be served by a cul-de-sac. The existing single-family dwelling on the property would be retained on its own lot, and the remainder of the buildings would be demolished in connection with the redevelopment project. In terms of planning justifications, again, this property already directly adjoins lands in the VR zoning district. It's a logical continuation of that zoning designation. It's adjoined on two sides by the CV school district campus. And although it's currently zoned for agricultural, the present use as an office demonstrates that the agricultural use of the property no longer reflects the actual or intended use. The ag district's purpose is to protect prime agricultural lands, and this is no longer appropriate given the use of the property. And the property is situated along and accessible via a portion of Mount Sydney Road, which is identified as a major collector road by the CV comprehensive plan. And in terms of comprehensive plans for the county, both Growing Together and Places 24 encourage the adaptive reuse and infill development of property. This is within the designated growth area, and the property is serviced by public sewer. So we presented to Planning Commission back in October, albeit with a little bit of a different makeup. That's the Board of Supervisors. I'm not sure if this Planning Commission has changed at all since that point in time, but my colleague Claudia Schenk presented back in October. Informally had some good feedback from the Planning Commission. We went to the Board of Supervisors on October 20th. Also had some good feedback, and they suggested or agreed that it would be appropriate for us to submit a petition to rezone, which we did, and obtained a favorable recommendation from the County Planning Department on January the 12th. So the hearing for this before the Board of Supervisors will be at its meeting in March. And tonight we're here really to ask the Planning Commission for its formal recommendation of approval of the petition. Certainly available to questions you might have.
Thank you. Before we get too far along, we just do want to mention from the standpoint of potential conflicts of interest, we don't believe there are any, but Ryan Martin's firm does do web development work for E.G. Stoltzfus, but he does not work on the development side or the legal side. So I do not think that it's an issue that he cannot take a vote on the application. Now, I just want to make clear, we are not voting or reviewing the development of the site. The rezoning obviously does allow for other development opportunities than an agricultural zoned property, but we're not talking about the development of the property tonight. This is just to look at the rezoning request. Okay. Questions from the Planning Commission?
But just one question. I heard you say it was public sewer. Is it also public water?
That's a good question. Do you know if it's public water?
It is not.
Okay,
There would be individual wells on that.
okay. Just curious.
I have more questions, but they're on the land development side, which is going to come at a later date. I don't have any questions about this initial application.
Any questions from the comments from the public? Hearing none, if they're look to a motion on land development plan number 2025, for Mount Sydney Road to village residential. Thank you.
I'll make a motion on application number 2025-30, application for rezoning for E.J. Stoltzfus, rezoning from agricultural to village residential, right? And my motion is that we recommend that the Board of Supervisors approve the rezoning application.
Is there a second? Seconds, a motion. Any final conversation or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Thank you very much.
We will move to New Development Plan 2026-06, which is a waiver of land development for Treehouse Foods located at 28 Old Philadelphia.
Dave McMahon from Julius, on behalf of Treehouse Foods. Treehouse Foods has recently failed the DHA, dust hazard analysis. They failed a dust hazard analysis. So this whole project is to eliminate and to impede that dust hazard. So what we're proposing is raising the flower room so that we can put some bin vents that will eliminate the dust inside the room. And then on the outside, what we're gonna do is put a small foundation for a switchback staircase. So we instead of them using all the platforms inside, their access is gonna be from.
And this is an area that's normally for truck parking.
It's their flower receiving, so they're still gonna receive flower. Where they can do it more.
Also, the additional construction does not add any employees, it does not add any parking. It's not add sewage or water needs, and there really aren't any other traffic that land development needs, and that's why they're asking for a waiver of land development. Okay. Questions from the planning commission?
And this is all on existing impervious.
Is this in any way change the way that you said this is where the flower receiving currently is? Is that
Yeah.
correct? Does it change in any way the pattern of the trucking going in and out?
They're gonna back up to the same area. They're just gonna be a few feet out from where they stop.
Hearing no more, any questions from the public? And I'll accept the motion. Plan 2026-06, waiver of land development for Treehouse Foods at 2060 Old Philadelphia Pike.
I'll make a motion on plan 2026-06 for Treehouse Foods. I'll make a motion that we recommend that the waiver of land development be granted.
And Brian seconds that motion. Any final discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? So moved. Thank you. And thank you to the folks from Rankin for allowing us to go through those two quickly. We didn't keep too much longer, I don't think. So next on the agenda is Land Development Plan 2025-26 for Street at 2195-K, Philadelphia Pike. You do have one member here. Presentations by Brian. So, just a little bit more detail. You might expect to get 4 people who have heard this before.
So I'm Craig from RGS Associates on behalf of Lancaster Architecture Supply. And what I'll do is I'll give you a brief overview of the project. We have a few modifications to discuss. And then we're here tonight seeking the recommendation. Preliminary final land development plan. So on the rendering, you can see what's being proposed. And if you recall, we were into the township for the property to the east, the light industrial. There's also a few properties along that are part of the project as well. And so the main property is where moving in. And then because of elements there were project, it's about 7 acres. That's lot 1. That's within the light industrial zoning district. There are then 4 other properties along Old Philadelphia Pike that have been subdivided as well. And so there's a lot 2, 3. There are 2 properties that are the lighter color on the west side there that Lancaster does not own. And then lot 4 and 5. And so they're technically a part of the project because we are consolidating the property. We're subdividing those properties along Old Philadelphia Pike. Those are within the R2 residential zoning district. And there's really no improvements as a part of those. As a part of the project. So really what we're proposing is the blue of the building will be a new retail, primarily a retail building. About 34,500 square feet, 2-story building. It will contain the main retail component of Lancaster Archery Supply. There will be offices in there as well. And if you know the site of the employees building that down, it's in that general location. The tan building on the north side is their current building that'll be retained and largely used for their current archery academy. I mean, that's mostly what it's going to be used for, as well as some office space as well. There is a house that the owners live in the middle of that parking lot right now that will be demolished as a part of the project as well. There's about 173 parking spaces that are proposed. And if you can scroll down a little bit. Thank you. A new entrance is going to be proposed as well, and that's currently under review by PennDOT through a highway occupancy permit. What's happening is we're proposing a left turn lane, so as you're heading eastbound, it will be what's called symmetrical widening, meaning there's improvements on the south side and on the north side to accommodate the left-hand turn going in. Those frontage improvements will include that widening, the new entrance, curbing, and also sidewalk. One of the things I wanted to point out, because this just happened with the supervisors tonight, is that, and it does relate to one of the modification requests, is that the properties to the west, number 2, 3, skip over the other properties, 4 and 5, we requested a deferral of the frontage improvements. So, meaning instead of doing curbing and sidewalk and widening that would impact those residential properties severely, we have agreed to go with a deferral approach, meaning the township would have the opportunity to have those improvements done in time when there's to. We had that discussion with the supervisor last night. We actually got approval for the deferral, and I just wanted to give the planning commission a heads up that that occurred to. Right. Yeah, that sounds good. There's obviously stormwater management that's happened. There's a small storm management in the front of the property. The majority of it is to the north. And this is going to be connected to public sewer and to public water as well. That's a general overview of the project. Any questions from the planning commission before we go any further?
Let's talk about the over capacity parking, where that's located.
Yes, so on occasion, Lancaster Archery Supply will have events, and that kind of, not quite a rectangle, but the green area that's above the parking lot will be intended for some overflow parking. We actually put 2 depressed curbs in there so that they could actually circulate and park the cars that would be in as part of that overflow on those occasions where they have this one. That's it.
Any questions just on the substance of the project? Anyone? What I'd like you to do is to go through DMA's letter. Speak specifically to the 2 parking. But if you could just go through the waivers and modification. Zoning is not our purview, but.
So I will briefly go review the waivers and modifications, but there. Number 1 on page 2 of the beginning letter is a waiver of the preliminary plan. So what we're requesting is that we're providing all the preliminary plan requirements, all this final plan. It's going to be all in one process to avoid essentially coming back to this board of supervisors for the exact same project. So we're condensing those into one process. There's no phasing in the project. It's a fairly small 40 acre scale project, and that's for the purpose of that. We were requesting. You can stop me if you have questions. Number 2 has to do with the survey requirements, and that has to do with the significant features on or within 200 feet of the property. All of this is surveyed. The property frontages are surveyed. We actually have some surveyed down a little bit further on Old Philadelphia Pike. What we're simply requesting is we're not going 200 feet into someone's property when we don't need that survey. There's no upland drainage coming to this property, and where we need some of that additional topo, we use the state's LiDAR topography, which is pretty accurate, but we don't need that additional survey. So the request is just to do it where we need it. Number 3, this has to do with the existing streets at the perimeter. So this is specifically for the portion that's in the R2 zoning district. And this is no longer necessary because of the deferral. So where that proposed lot starts and further west, rather than requesting a waiver of those frontage improvements, we're requesting the deferral that was approved last night.
So did the supervisors actually approve it, or did they have a conversation with you to recommend it? So that when we review it, we get to recommend to them that they should approve the deferral.
They actually acted on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Number 4 requires a 20-foot radius on a local street and a 30-foot radius on a arterial street or collector street. So this is the curb returns out at the entrance. Where the new entrance is proposed, we're actually proposing right around the 15-foot radius. The reason for that is we have to meet PennDOT requirements. So whatever PennDOT requires is what we're subject to for the HOP. Sometimes PennDOT doesn't bring theirs because then you get a wider throat. You get people that are coming out and other people coming beside them, and then there becomes a conflict visually and things like that. So it's simply to defer to PennDOT requirements. Is what we're asking. Number 5 is sidewalks required on both sides of street frontage. This is the exact same deferral that I'm referring to from last night. Sidewalk is proposed along lot 1 where the improvements are proposed. It is not proposed 2 through 5 to the west in that residential zoning district. 6 is sidewalks along public streets. So there's a requirement for the spacing of where the sidewalk occurs. And typically it's 1 foot outside the right of way. In this case, because of the improvements, because of the left turn lane, the widening is somewhat irregular. And the right of way, the PennDOT right of way has to follow those improvements. And so when you're looking at that sidewalk there, some places it has a 5-foot grass strip, some places it's narrower than that, some it's a little bit wider. And so we're not technically following that. We're outside the PennDOT right of way. Some portions, and we are proposing an access easement. Etc. We've also see sign that's out there. So providing the sidewalk, we're just simply not, we're asking to not be exactly in line with the ordinance as far as the spacing goes. The one thing I want to point out is we did have a conversation with township staff about potentially making this bituminous. I know the township has recommended before, rather than a concrete sidewalk, and bituminous and having a little bit more curvilinear. We're willing to do that. However, again, with this particular configuration, the fact that there's grading out front, the utility poles will be moved to the back of the sidewalk. There's kind of little room to maneuver. And I point that out as it relates to this waiver because I would want to include the material in that waiver as well, so that we're including that in the when I talk about the 2 minutes, where we can do either one, but right now it's proposed as concrete. One of the ideas about the concrete is we would have that across what's zoned light industrial. If there was ever a connection further west, that could turn into bituminous, which would delineate or differentiate between the light industrial and the R2. Not a strong opinion about that, but I just point that out to the plan.
So for lot 1, you're doing concrete.
Right now, that's what it's proposed. We're not adverse to doing bituminous. We just really didn't talk specifically about that. So I would just want that mentioned in this particular modification request. And I think that's section. That's section 368-505D. So that refers to the construction specifications for the township, which I believe are concrete sidewalks. So I would want that added if in fact, end up with bituminous walkway. Number 7 is, and then we're getting into the stormwater management portion. Number 7 is the minimum cover depth. This is for conveyance pipes. There's several instances. The grade out at Old Philadelphia pipe goes up in elevation and then it goes down in elevation back toward the railroad tracks. And because of that configuration, we have several instances where we're not meeting the minimum 1 foot of cover on top of the pipe bedding. And so we're requesting to lessen that 1 foot, and in those instances, we're actually proposing concrete pipe to make sure structurally everything is sound. But because of the grades, it's really impossible to achieve that without drastically changing the grades.
So for those of us who are not construction oriented, the class 4 RCP is the concrete pipe.
Correct. Yeah. Reinforced concrete pipe. Yeah,
Thank you.
exactly. That's number 7. Number 8, I won't get into too much detail on this one, but the maximum loading ratio has to do with the amount of impervious cover and actual drainage area getting to the stormwater facility. Back in the old requirements, there was these ratios that applied. DEP doesn't actually recognize these anymore. So what's happened in several instances, the municipal stormwater ordinance doesn't match DEP's, and that, believe it or not, keeps changing. So our NPDES permit we have to comply with. In this case, we're asking for a modification of that. And really, it's based on the geology testing that's done out there. I mean, we do several infiltration tests, and the geologist has to agree to the approach that we're taking.
You'll supply a letter from the geologist.
Yeah, and it's in the report as well. But like I said, it's an old requirement that. The last two requests, actually, we're going to withdraw because that has to do with the hydraulic grade line, which means in certain instances where you have a stormwater inlet at the 100-year storm event, it originally was coming out of the inlet. The other requirement, number 10, has to do with 25-year storm event where you have to have a foot of cover from the grade elevations that we actually made the pipes a little larger. That hydraulic grade line went down, and we're in compliance with that. We don't need to sue. In a short period of time.
On the zoning, we did the only one I wanted to. Touch on the lighting plan. Any plan to be revised and tweaked. So how are we looking at that?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, it has to do with the spillover of the property. We actually made the modification. That'll be on our next plan submit.
So the subdivision landed on with issues if we found them. Go through these, whatever you want to. We have questions then.
There was a little bit of confusion because of the plans on the cover sheet of what's a well, what's public water. This has to do with lots 2 through 5, and on lot 2, we are proposing, it has a well on it right now. We are proposing a public connection to lot 2. Lot 3 already has a public connection. Lot 4 is actually vacant, doesn't have anything on it. And lot 5, we are proposing, it does have a well, we're proposing a water connection to that. It's for the homes and for the Flying Star Tree facilities to be on public water. Number 2, typical street cross sections. That has to do with the HOP, providing what's on the HOP. Number 3 has to do with ownership certificates. We'll put that one as well. The owner actually owns the property, but not the technical name. So we'll put that entity on the plan. Number 4, prior recorded plans, but we'll get that information and put that on the plan as well. Number 5 is the certificates associated with the water, and we'll get that from, we did get a capacity approval from Mr. City for the water service on this project. That has to do with number 5. Number 6, the sewer planning module, that's actually at DEP right now, so we're waiting for DEP for that. Number 7 is financial security. We did submit cost opinions for sewer and water and site, and we're waiting for a review from BMA on that. Financial securities.
And since you're drawing the waiver request, the other comment here was depending on the cost of doing those improvements, you would actually have to add that, but that will not be added. So,
Number 8 has to do with a reference, and this has to do with the township right of way versus the PennDOT right of way. That's just a label that we will change. Number 9 has to do with curbs. This has to do with the deferral, lots 2 through 5. Number 10, sidewalks along public streets located within the street right of way. This has to do with an access easement across the sidewalk that's going across lot number 1, which we do show on plan now. Number 11 has to do with the mandatory dedication of land requirement. So this is, we have to formulate this calculation, and that'll be a negotiation with the supervisors as far as what the park and rec requirements fee in lieu of will be as a part of this project. So that's yet to come with the supervisors. 12 is the traffic impact study. We have not received comments. We're waiting for those. The EMA indicated there'll be a separate cover. Number 13, the fire department and the police chief. We have heard back from the police. We have not heard from the fire department. So we're waiting on that as far as any comments from them. Number 14 has to do with a target. So there was a target, if you go northeast on the corner of the building, there was a target we proposed for removal. On one of the sheets, it was still shown on there, so we'll pick that up. That's intended to be removed. Number 15 was simply a lot action. 16, the property ownership information, there's an adjoiner that's shown that's incorrect. Correct. So the comments that we have left. Please stormwater.
at least address the first one, since the letter from David Miller, it's that they've not yet received the report. So if you can.
So we have received or we sent the geology report in. That geology report was slightly updated. Just to be honest with you, we sent the wrong one in at the last submittal. So we'll send the updated one to the township.
Related to stormwater are also reviewed by others in the planning commission, and I didn't see anything egregious that stood out there that we would need to. So for you, when we do this, our recommendation usually includes reference to the David Miller letter. So I just want to do a couple of things if I can as I go through this. So whoever knows what we're including and not including the David Miller letter. So we will include the waiver request for preliminary plans if you've got it on as recommended. Modification survey, and that was also to be recommended. We will delete 3. That was the partial waiver request for the improvements on lots 2, 3, 4, and 5. Number 4 is a modification request, and that was also to be granted. And number 5 will also be changed to a deferral request on those improvements on lots 2, 3, 4, and 5, as opposed to a partial waiver. The deferral request at the time that the township would ask those improvements to be made, and I'm assuming a deferral agreement will be prepared to be signed.
That's correct.
By the other parties. Okay. Number 6 is a partial modification granted with the condition that a pedestrian access easement be provided outside for the section outside of the dedication of public right of way, and adding to that a modification related to materials in section 368.5B to permit either concrete or bituminous material. That's section B. I'm sorry. That's my hearing. Number 7 is a modification request for coverage. That's granted with condition that they use the concrete pipe, which they agreed to, Number 8 is a modification request that we will retain. That also is to be granted, related to the geologist providing a letter. 9 and 10 are being withdrawn, so 9 will be active on. And then if there's a comment, the lighting plan has been submitted. Yeah. And on the subdivision ordinance, I think the only thing we need to point out is that the curb and sidewalk issues of deferrals. The basic point is made there, and they're waiting for comments on the traffic impact study. I think I covered everything. No changes to the department, the county, the public letter, so that. The other comments there by Steve's talking about the sidewalk along Old Philadelphia Pike. Okay. Questions for Lancaster Archery Supply?
The only thing I just wanted to note, I don't know if you mentioned this on the waiver number 3, that should be part of the deferral agreement as well. You started talking about the deferral agreement, I think, with.
Yes, it's a modification.
yeah.
Yes. And which is the same thing, so we'll require a deferral agreement. To the township to have. Those are comments. So I will look for a motion on land development plan 2025-26 for Lancaster Archery at 2195-A Old Philadelphia Pike to include the DMA letter dated January 16, 2026, as we amended this evening, and the planning department letter, which I keep losing, November 4th of 2025.
All right, here it goes. Gonna make a motion for plan number 2025-26 Lancaster Archery to recommend an approval to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the Lancaster County Planning Commission letter dated 11/4/25 and the DMA Associates letter dated January 16, 2026. However, on the DMA letter, with the above mentioned date, and make a couple of adjustments. We're gonna, for item numbers, waivers, modifications, and deferrals, number 3 and 5, instead of, we're gonna approve a deferral of on each of those points as already acted on by the Board of Supervisors. And we're subject to the applicant withdrawing item numbers 9 and 10. Everything else stands as the letter.
So there's a second. I'll second that. Second. Final opportunity for conversation.
Mention, I think we wanted to add number 6, the modification for the bituminous. Yeah, the option to use it alternative material.
Second.
Yes.
Second.
Thank you.
Attorney. I had to ask the public if there are any questions, but I think, are you all with Archery Supply?
-A will go away, it'll be just 2195. It'll simplify things greatly. Keep us from getting each other's mail.
Hopefully. Okay. All those in favor say aye. So moved. Thank you. Item of business is zoning ordinance amendments. That's been considered by everyone.
So I'm gonna give you guys a little presentation, I'm gonna summarize what's in this zoning ordinance amendment. Kind of a lot going on, so I kind of wanted to give you the background as to why the township is proposing this, since it's coming from the township. So Lee is figuring out how to share the screen. So basically, this amendment is a lot of technical items. It's correcting different spelling errors, improving some consistencies. And then the other part of it, I think the more interesting part, of course, is it's a response to the 2023 housing study. And that's where some of these changes are kind of in here to address that. Yeah. It's okay. I should start. Okay. Well, I can do it this way. I was trying to be cool to give you guys a presentation. Okay. Here. Okay, so I will just go through it since it's not block reading here. I'll get out of the hot seat. I'll back. Apologies for that. So I'm going to go through some of the changes that address the housing study. And then you guys can provide some of the overall plan. Go in order. Oh, never mind, Lee. Leave it alone. Sorry about that. We get the gold stars. All right, so the goal of this was, again, addressing technical amendments, typos, and responding to the 2023 housing study. And these typos, inconsistencies, this is something that's kind of been around before I was here. The previous zoning officer, Tara, and then just some people in the office since 2021, we're kind of putting together things that were just inconsistent, spelling problems. This amendment addresses that. And then for the housing needs study part, just a little background from the 2023 study. Some of those needs were identified as needing more housing, more affordable or accessible housing in the township, needing smaller units, which that kind of goes hand in hand, more affordable, and then looking to increase our housing supply within our existing infrastructure. So this is usually within our urban growth boundary, where our sewer, where our water is. So how do we get more housing in that existing area? So how are we looking to address these needs? This can be met from the zoning ordinance amendment. So allowing different housing types in more places, increasing housing density in some locations. This can be brought from reducing minimum area, setback, and dimension standards, and then looking into amending parking requirements for residential uses. Different houses in more places. Something that the township looked at for years was possibly allowing more units in some of our commercial districts. That was kind of a more controversial, still a lot of back and forth in that issue, where there was kind of consensus from the Board of Supervisors and the housing study was looking into allowing multifamily units by right in the R2 district. So that is in this proposal here. And that's sort of the one big change in the R2. Where a lot of the changes in this proposal is actually in the mixed use and the R3 district. You can see the zoning map there. It gives you an idea. The purple, that little tiny strip of purple, which is, that's the mixed use district. And then that kind of like dark mustard yellow, that's R2. And R3 is the orange. So most of these changes are just in that little bit of orange and that little bit of purple. So that's where we're looking at for kind of the bigger changes in this. So increasing housing density in MU and R3, we're proposing a 50% reduction of the minimum density requirements. So this is the number of housing units per acre, essentially, is what we look at. So where it's currently at in the MU, which is mixed use, we allow 4 units per acre, single family, in the high density R3, 6 units per acre, semi-detached, 8 units per acre, so on and so forth. So what's being proposed is basically cutting that in half and allowing double the amount of density per unit. But just to give you an idea of what's not allowed. So if you look at the house on your left there, that's actually in Grandview Heights, that's in Manheim Township. So that house is a single family. The lot is just under 5,000 square foot. It does have off-street parking in the rear. So that's illegal everywhere in the township. You cannot build that anywhere, not even close. So if you look at we're at 10,000 square feet for 1 unit. So this is supposed to be in our high density district, not even allowed there. So this ordinance is looking to make things like that more legal. Again, and then this semi-detached there to your right, that's on a 2,600 square foot lot with off-street parking in the rear. Nowhere near to be legal in our R3 or MU. These aren't even being proposed to be legal in the R2, so this is kind of incremental, but that's for those changes. That's just kind of an example. And then another consideration in this is the lot widths. So we're looking at a 50% reduction of minimum lot width in the MU and R3. So where we're at now, we're at 50 feet in the MU and R3, 40 feet for single families, townhouses, all by dwelling type. So we're looking at a 50% reduction as well in the R3 and MU. Townhouses, that's actually 12 foot, not 12.5. So just an idea to the furthest extreme I tried to find out on the interwebs. Here's a 12-foot wide townhouse, very narrow, but that is like the furthest extreme of what could be allowed. You know, still have to meet building code requirements, still have to meet other standards, but just from a zoning side, this is something we're looking at just in these 2 districts, give developers maybe a little creativity as well. Setbacks, this ordinance is proposing to align the R3 setbacks to be the same as what's in our village and MU districts. And then we're looking at for the R2, a reduction to a 15-foot front setback and 20-foot rear setback. Here's just a little example of what is allowed. The setbacks do change whether it's at the right of way or if it's further back in the lot. But R3, this is what it currently is. And that's what would stay at. It matches these village districts, and MU would match the R3. Here's the R2 is currently at a 30-foot front setback and 35-foot rear. Another item that this ordinance is looking at is addressing the max lot coverage area, and is proposing to align the mixed use MU with the R3 and village districts as well, and then have a slight increase in the R2. So here's where we're currently at. The MU can have 50% where the building is covering the lot and 60% with all improvements. This includes driveway, sidewalks with the building. And R3, 40% and 60%. So this ordinance is looking at a slight increase, making it the same, slight increase just for the MU, so it matches the village district. And then the R2 would be a slight increase. This is our medium density district to 40% for all buildings, 60% for all improvements. And just a note for, even though something just overall, some of these bulk requirements would change, they'd still be subject to all our stormwater requirements. So that's still going to be a pretty big challenge. If we're going to try to have something a lot higher density. The idea is to kind of give more flexibility to more creative, like stormwater management practices. So if a developer is trying to cover up more of a lot, they're going to have to find ways to make the stormwater work. Instead of just having like a blanket, you need this amount of open green space. Instead, they're going to have to do things underground facilities. Just find if the site doesn't work, if stormwater doesn't work, doesn't matter what these changes will be. So there's still other areas they have to look at. And then the off-street parking, we're looking to remove the requirement for the echo units. These are our granny flats. maybe discourage granny or grandpa from driving when they shouldn't potentially. It also gives an incentive for people to maybe use the Echo units as opposed to accessory use. And then also we're looking at this one's a little bit crazy, but eliminating a parking minimum for only residential uses in the mixed use. Just the mixed use district. Again, that's that little purple area. It's a very small portion of the township. There's 2 bus lines running through here. There's easy mass transit to those sites. We originally looked at doing into R3 as well, but there's certain parts that are a little bit far for transit. So all commercial uses would still require parking. And the idea of this is other municipalities, they have given some leeway with not having parking for affordable housing. Coming from Harrisburg, where they passed an affordable housing ordinance, enforcing that, being able to figure out how all those things work, it gets very challenging and it discourages, I guess, smaller developers. I think with this approach, with not having a parking requirement, a very small portion, is one, the market's still going to demand parking. That's the reality. But if someone is a little bit under what our standards are, it gives, again, the market to decide. It gives a little more flexibility. Again, this is just kind of a small portion of what's in this, but this is at least the housing portion of this ordinance amendments. I kind of want to just give you guys a little background and open up for conversation, discussion, concerns. And this has been shared with neighboring municipalities for comment. It's been shared with the county for comment. We still haven't received comment back. Last night, a hearing date was set. This to go before the Board of Supervisors, April 6th. So any recommendations, comments will be sent to them as well. I haven't had any comment back yet from our neighboring municipalities or from the county yet. So this is the first time everyone's seeing it. So this is open for change. That's it.
Questions?
I'll just make a comment. Jake, would it be possible if you could, we don't have to act on this tonight, correct?
I was gonna ask him, what's the timeline for us acting?
Well, since the hearing is the 6th, there's room to move to March. So for you to decide on that. I mean, there's still time since the hearing's on the 6th, so.
So my perspective, I was reviewing this and it was really difficult to, without going back and forth with the zoning ordinance, figuring out like the changes. And I think, Jacob, what you provided is super helpful. Like, would you be able to email that to us?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And something else I have in hindsight, the reason I didn't include it is because this was sent to our solicitor, so they did do some changes. Because I do have basically what I used to develop this, where I basically have X'd out what was in the original ordinance. It doesn't line up 100% with what you have in front of you, but it might help you to get a little reference if you would like to see that.
Yeah.
Mine's a little bit longer since I kind of go out. They kind of condensed some things, the solicitors, and made it much more quicker read, but it does help a little bit.
Okay, that'd be
If
great.
you would like that, I can send that as well.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I think it would be helpful, whether they will or not. I think it would be helpful to us as a planning commission to see if there are comments from our neighboring municipalities and the county
Absolutely.
before we would make a recommendation to. You have other questions? I have a couple of.
I have one more actually about the off-street parking. So that would be like if you had an apartment or a little house or something that they were building in the mixed use zone, they don't have to have any parking.
If they chose not to, but the reality is since there's no on-street parking,
Yeah, where would people park?
That was my question.
then they wouldn't live there because there's nowhere to park. So their house wouldn't be marketable.
Or the depend on public
So they
transportation.
would have to use public transportation.
I just, like, I don't know, my perspective is like, if this is not, like, if a developer is gonna see this and like, we have to have parking anyway, like, why would we have? I don't know.
Why
Yeah.
build the allowance?
Yeah.
It's to give the idea is to give a developer flexibility. So say you build a 5-unit apartment building and you want to include 4 spots, 1 space for each unit, and potentially have an affordable unit where you're marketing towards low-income individuals that might not have a car. It gives them that ability. Because the idea is that zoning district does have a lot of access to mass transit.
Yeah.
So it would give that let them work. And if it doesn't work, they're not gonna be able to rent the apartment and they're probably not gonna build it. So.
Yeah, or the person who's gonna rent the apartment's gonna park illegally somewhere.
That was, is the township concerned about that last point?
Sorry.
Is the township concerned about that last point? That was
It's
my
a
only thought.
concern that could definitely happen, and that's people's cars will get towed, and that's why we're trying it with the very smallest district, and absolutely a possibility. Yes.
So this is primarily in the Bridgeport area,
Yes.
for the most part, with a little bit of a stretch. So how the Bridgeport plan gets implemented could provide an opportunity to do additional housing, but not meeting one car for every unit. I think that that's part of the flexibility piece of this is to, if you look at how small the district is and where it is, that it is public transportation. So somebody who does ride a bus to work and back to the city or wherever. But I think what I liked about this was the Bridgeport plan and the ability of flexibility there. I guess they could always ask for an exception to the zoning requirement for parking as part of a development too. That gets a little bit troublesome too. Then you start creating exceptions to the existing ordinance and when do you allow it, when do you don't allow it?
So the motivation is just to increase flexibility.
Exactly.
Across the, I mean, that's pretty much what I'm hearing you say. That's kind of across the board. We're trying to get more flexibility into this. Do we have a percentage of housing we're trying to get to? That, I mean, from like, what's the end goal of this? We're creating X amount more properties. Like, what does that look like? Number one.
I mean, there's not like, I guess, a set number. Are you talking about in general for the whole
Yeah.
ordinance?
Yeah.
It'd be kind of to try to meet those needs of the housing 2023 housing need study. I don't know the numbers off the top of my
I
head.
wasn't sure what we're
Trying
like.
to accommodate what the need is.
Right.
It's about an additional 1,400 over what's already in the pipeline for 5 years.
Got it.
And then you have the next 5 years
Yeah.
beyond that.
Just to go back to the flexibility of the parking, demographics are changing significantly. Whether you like it or don't like it, and a lot of folks, especially the younger generations, are just not caring about driving. They will use rideshare or they will use public transportation. It just isn't important to them, whereas having access to an apartment probably is. So yeah, I like the flexibility.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I guess what like I'm just struggling with is like. I see that and like someone might not want a car, they don't have a car, they don't need a car, but like. They get this apartment and then like a year from then, they need a car and they won't have a place to park it. So they're gonna have to like either park illegally or get another apartment. Like lose their housing. You know, yeah, and then how about like people who come visit them, like a friend that comes visit, where'd they park?
Have that issue, even with the
Yeah.
minimum parking
Yeah.
requirement, you still have that issue. But again, I think focus on the small geographical area that we're looking at.
Is there like common parking anywhere in that area? Like,
To me, if I'm a commercial developer and I'm gonna build a commercial building and maybe put a couple rental units in it, I'm gonna have spaces for
Yeah, in
the
your-
commercial. And I may allow the tenant
mhm,
to park there.
yeah,
Maybe.
Look at the zoning ordinance, what our allowance is for people leasing parking. I mean, because there can be potentially agreements where you do have, because this is, mixed use. So there is different times, most of these parking lots might be empty certain hours a day where people are at work. So there could be possible solutions where people have like some kind of parking lease agreement where right now it's not legal because now you have a unit, you have to have X amount of spaces that maybe this could work out.
yeah, I'm thinking of like when we're, like all along Harrisburg Pike near F&M, like that area there that they have all that student housing and then behind there, there's commercial as well, but then behind there's all the parking that they, I guess, share yeah.
Yeah, I mean, coming from the city's perspective, this issue of required parking has been on the books since I've been there. With people who want to develop housing and affordable housing, saying that those parking requirements make it more challenging for them to build an apartment and generate the revenue that they need to make the numbers work. So if you're talking about parking challenges, parking in the city is a huge challenge. But that idea of no longer requiring minimum parking requirements is something that the city's been looking at as a way of encouraging additional smaller housing development, to be honest, not larger housing.
Yeah.
Honestly, like the hope would be for this is maybe like the example I gave, someone built 3 units and maybe you put 1 unit where you don't have a space. These aren't really looking at someone's gonna build 50 units, 0 parking, 2-bedroom units. The rent market, it wouldn't work. People wouldn't probably rent them because
But in the city, you have the parking on the street that you can find a
Yes.
street parking. And they don't have street parking anywhere here option.
and in reality, if someone has a car and makes a poor judgment decision to rent an apartment with no parking, they're gonna get their car towed and they're gonna have a lot of issues and they're not gonna wanna live there probably.
The comment,
Section 7, minimum complete or took back on the city, is that? You elaborate on that. Article 6.
Section 7, Article 6,
Yeah.
minimum rear setback shall be 6 feet. I believe that's for the accessory. Yeah, it's for accessory accessory structures. Yeah, sorry, 'cause that's what Sarah was saying. When you follow through this, because it's so condensed, you have to open up the zoning code and then look at the section 60, 30.2. That it refers to
Wow.
everything in the unit.
Okay, thank you.
And is that in just the R2 zone? Do you know, or is that in R2? Okay.
in section 24 on page 5, this is pieces. I've not seen anybody address those.
Sorry, would you say, Randy?
Address drones.
I saw that too.
It says unless permitted by the board of supervisors, I'm assuming a permitting process is going to be established. Or is it just someone coming in saying, I want to use drones next weekend, can I have your approval?
Section 24.
24, number 3. Says unless permitted by the board of supervisors. It was just a question, are you going to develop a permitting process?
I was looking at that too. To be frank, I have no idea. The correction in here was literally fixing typos. So I do not know what our process is for
Is
drones.
there one today? Well, that's good.
When I went through that, I was like, oh yeah, there's a typo there. So I didn't really get into that level.
I know that in the flies open.
Yes, yes. Section 27, page 6. Electrical housing unit shall not be occupied by more than one family. So I have a question, and it's a general question, and I didn't go back and look in the zoning ordinance. But there's currently a movement related to affordability of unrelated individuals removing restrictions for a certain number of unrelated individuals residing in a unit. Those ordinances address families, and they basically say unrelated individuals are not permitted, or they're only permitted in certain areas. So the question wasn't necessarily about this line, but it was more, as the zoning ordinance going to take a look at potentially considering a change to any restrictions on unrelated individuals residing in a single family home, a townhouse, apartment.
Yeah, so what you're referring to, they're calling it the Golden Girls. rule.
Yes,
That's-
yeah.
That's what the
I don't
meaning.
want to age myself. So.
So how our ordinance, where that comes from is how the state defines a family, and that's where it has a number of unrelated individuals. So that is not looked at in this change at this time. And where townships usually have that, why we follow that is, I worked at the city, there's a lot of issues with boarding houses. where you have a lot of people living in one home unrelated, and there's a lot of police calls. So that's sort of where that's coming from the state. Township still kind of follows how the state defines a family. That is not part of that. That could be a consideration to make it more affordable.
Something to think about, just because I think talking different generations. Today, younger generations might have a friend and say, hey, let's rent the apartment together, but an ordinance might not permit that, or let's three of us rent a house, a 3-bedroom house. But you may not be permitted to do that by ordinance, but it provides for affordability.
Now it's up to 3 unrelated. So if you go over, Golden Girls is 4, so
Yeah.
interest permitted.
In the city, we had houses that addressed the issue of unrelated individuals. We had houses that had more people that were related living in a smaller house. And we had unrelated individuals living in a unit. So I think just looking at the affordability issue, and again, back to the housing study, and that issue of affordability is one of the things that the housing study was looking to address, something to think about.
Just one question following up on that. Is there in any of our ordinances, anything about like the number of people in a unit, whether family or not family?
That falls under building code. I don't know what the exact number is, but there is code requirements based on number of occupants per bedroom. So that kind of falls out of the zoning area. It gets kind of into like health and safety.
Okay, I have a very odd question on page 8 at the very top. Density for high density residential. The minimum lot width. Just explain to me why you need 25 feet in one part and 37 feet from the front yard setback, but only 25 feet from the street right away. I know it's only 12 feet, but it's only 2 of me. I'm just curious, the A and B are both the same. They both have different, and it's the only place where they're different. The rest are 12 and 12 and 50 and 50 and so forth and so on. And I was just, what's the difference?
I assume that because this is going off of how the code is originally written, we're just reducing the numbers.
Okay.
So I didn't change kind of how the makeout was. I was questioning that myself. And I was looking at maybe that's trying to preserve a certain character as you go back from the road, or I wasn't sure though why our code has that for some and not for others.
It's only in the high density residential, which to me, you want high density, but yet you have these requirements for larger setbacks. It just kind of didn't make sense to me. Any other comment? We'll wait to get, so we'll have this on our agenda for March.
Okay.
And if you get comments from our neighboring townships in the county, could you share those with us in advance?
Sure.
And maybe we can cut down on the time then on the 6th that we work on this.
I'll share what's in this slideshow, and it might get a little confusing me giving this to you, but this is like what I gave to our solicitor, just to track some of the changes. Again, not everything's 100% of what got changed.
What you called out.
Yeah.
It kind of shows you what went behind the scenes too.
Perfect.
And I do recommend, very time consuming, but if you take our code on the E360 and just kind of go through each change and look at the code, that might be helpful if you find the time. But probably more helpful to look at maybe just for the housing study items.
Yeah, I think that's where most of the
big
changes are. The rest, a lot of those are typos.
Yes. And absolutely, if you find typos, and Jansen pointed one out to me to see typos. Yeah. So there were actually some typos there was a few from me that I added, and then when it was rewritten from other people, they added some, so it's not to blame other people. A lot of hands get involved, and more like just don't feel shy about letting me know there's a typo.
You have any? Okay. Oh, thank you. Briefing item, land development plan 2026-03, for the high foundation that's still on Greenfield Road, the subdivision.
With this, once this came with the subdivision plan, for a high foundation on that new lot, they're gonna build a 8,900 square foot office building. Stormwater park.
Sorry, you said those under 9,000?
Yeah, just slightly under 9,000, 8,000, approximately, so maybe it'll be 9,000.
This next, we have an approval of the annual report of the planning commission. That we is required under the municipal planning code of the state. You will do this under you. So we will go through the brief narrative and the spreadsheet showing the projects that we worked on over the course of the year. Is there anything you want to add to that, Jacob?
So this is just a compile of what the activities have been for the year. So this didn't include stormwater management plans, so some of those outer numbers are out of order. Not too much to add. If you see anything that doesn't make sense, since I wasn't here for half of this, so.
Wasn't the question on the table, on the Mrs. Furniture, the meeting date is listed as 6/13/2023. Is that the original date or is that the one, I know that came across our docket here since then.
Yeah, so some of those dates, because some of these came before here more than once. I tried to include the date, the last date before it was forwarded to. So something was tabled or it would be the last meeting date where there was action.
I would make one change in your spreadsheet because most people don't know what it is. The very last one, you have Advent St. Mark's. On the title, that is correct, but the organization that owns it now is the Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherd. So whether you want to put AKA, because no one will know that Advent and St. Mark's don't exist anymore.
What's the name now, the correct?
Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherd. They merged. Advent and St. Mark's bought the property back in the 70s, early 70s. To build the church, and then it became the Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherd, but they never went back and changed the old land development plan titles or the old titles or whatever. The attorneys took care of all of that with the sales transaction, but no one would recognize the name today, except those who were members of the church.
This report will, I have a sample letter for you, Randy, at some point, I guess. Then this will get forwarded to actually the Board of Supervisors as well, because they approved the annual. So I think it would be the second meeting that.
I think in the past, we actually had a motion to approve the annual report as presented, to present to the Board of Supervisors for approval. So take a motion to approve as presented with the changes we talked about.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2025 annual report of the Planning Commission with the modification we talked about. And then I think Ryan had a modification as well that he talked to Jacob about. Yeah.
The second? Second. Jansen. Second. Jansen. All those in favor say aye.
Right.
Opposed? Thank you, Jacob. And we have no other business that I'm aware of. So I'll take the motion to adjourn. I'll take it. Meeting, Jansen moved. I'll second. Ryan second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? So moved.